And for you, what has this new normal meant for you as an artist or as a creative? Anyone can start.
Honestly, it's been difficult. My core business is, I'm an actor, but I also run a company which is mostly doing social awareness campaigns for different departments and municipalities. Since the COVID, you know, sometimes you go to a department, you hand them your proposal, they look at the proposal, they like it, and they say, no, okay, we give you a contract for a certain time, and then Ubaba Wetu, president, asibizele kwi family meeting, the next day you get a call to, sorry Puti, we cancel. So those are difficulties la sihlangabezana now as abantu abahaslishayo, more especially because it's not only about me, because I'm talking about 5 to 10 people abazokwenza leyo nto. So it becomes so difficult because now you call the actors, maybe you do auditions, you call them, and then you select whatever you want, and then you start rehearsing. 3 days before your first show, you get a call. We cancel because of these COVID regulations.
When it affected you from a business aspect.
Kakhulu kwi business, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. But Tony?
Okay.
Whoever wants to go
Yeah.
next.
Well, I think a new normal affected the creative industry in a very sensitive way, because, like for instance, issues of audience, people who rely on audience to make business out of their art. Now the audience was to cut into half. Now the budget that will be asking from the client, it means that the client cannot give you that budget that he would have initially gave you because you're going to bring maybe 10,000 people. Now you're no longer going to bring 10,000 people, you're going to bring about 5,000 people. So everything gets cut from there. The other thing is when you come to the acting industry and stuff like that, the technicalities of how you do things then changes. We can't do kissing scenes anymore. Not that kissing is important.
I was about to ask, because your wife is right next to me.
Yes. You can't touch anymore. So the way the composition of how you put your production together, it also has to take a different shift. The mindset has to change. The way you approach things have to change. Even though others are messing it up, but it meant that you cannot really go as far as you want to go. So you needed to come up with different ways of how to approach whatever it is that you're doing.
I can attest to that. I had a scene where, for those of you who don't know, I was on a show called Isibaya. I played Madlamin Pumelele, and I was dating a guy called Fenyang. And I had a scene where he proposed. And he had to propose Elapaya. And I was like, oh! yes, but I couldn't hug him, you know? And so I think even just from how you manifest the creativity of your art, it affected us even on set, right? In terms of just how we manifest the art itself. Zakes, your new normal, what does that look like for you? Or what has that looked like for you?
I think we have to be honest here. Like really, COVID has affected everyone. Not only the creative industry, but every industry. I think the only industry that perhaps would say we better is the pharmaceutical industry. Every other industry is affected, but not only that, because my colleagues here have touched on the business itself in terms of being affected, but it also affected families. I don't know how many we've witnessed so many people getting divorced last year. You know, we've witnessed even families, you know, going their separate ways, and this is the pressure and the challenges that this pandemic has brought forward. And some other people couldn't manage it because of its pressures. I mean, other people are dealing with depression now. You know, others are dealing with some sort of like mental illness and all of those things. Or some of the issues that somehow you were never used to be faced with. Because umntwana wakho mhlawumbe uyakuhlupha uvela umhambise esikoleni, and now you have to deal with that particular things. So I think that's just how normal is to a lot of us, especially South Africans. Now, then how then do you operate and become more creative when you are, for all along as an artist, you were at home with both parents married and all of those things, and suddenly the family is no longer there, but you still are expected to create. And you are just creating when you don't even know where you're gonna stage whatever that you are creating, or you're even making a song and you don't know when to release it, because even when you release it and it's a hit record, but you still won't be able to perform it. And I think this is just one thing that people maybe needed to understand, and I'd like Guti, because in our industry we are well PR'd. We are so PR'd as artists that some people. That's why some of us, when people see you, they might want to cry because they just cannot believe that you are right in front of them. But it's because how PR'd we are, because people don't actually think that you are a human being. And now imagine when now that happens, and you are still expected to be that particular Ayanda, and you are no longer making money. You cannot afford to live in an address that you used to live. Now you have to go back to Kwamashu, where you were born, and the dynamics are different. We see by like TV, and all those particular challenges might depress you or any other person. I mean, I know a lot of artists who are still trying to avoid to say I'm struggling, sure. Because you are so PR'd that you can't say you are struggling, because when you are struggling, friends are going to take advantage of you. So these are just issues that are faced with the creative industry, and it has affected everyone. It has affected me directly. I mean, I had so many plans that I had, for my career. But for me, I think maybe for to talk in terms of like positivity, because I was right at the brink of relaunching my what I call now live electronic set. So I was changing from just only being only being a frontline artist to going back to behind the DJ deck to DJ and perform. And that could have taken me about 2 to 3 years, because at the time when that happened, some people were like, "Yo, Zakes, why now come and perform?" Like, some people do not understand now this kind of performance that I'm doing currently. And it was one thing, I was like, I'm not gonna go front stage because they know that. So I'm gonna be here maybe for like a year or two, trying to people to understand now I can also perform like this. And if lockdown did not happen, I would still be trying to explain that. But since lockdown happened and then people watched TV, they were sitting down, they saw that, then they were receptive.
There was an opportunity.
There was an opportunity.
Right.
So that 2 years that it would have taken me, it only took me just 30 minutes when I was on lockdown for people to understand, okay, now you can, so you can also present his performance like this. So there are those particular opportunities that happen, but there are also those challenges that also happen at the same time.
I like that. I mean, I like what you're sharing. So there's two things that I want to add to that. The first one being, when people see you and when they see your work on television, they assume that you're still working. So often when artists die, how mhlambe ibingekho imali yokumngcwaba usengcwatshwe uhulumeni or whatever it is, inkulumo ezaye zibe khona, abantu have this perception that because I've been in the industry for 33 years, for instance, it means I've been working for 33 years. And that's not the case in our industry. I've been in the industry for 33 years, but maybe, I'm not saying I've been in the industry for 33 years, because that will make me 50-something. But I've been in the industry for however many years, but I've actually only worked for half of those years. And I think it speaks to the dynamics of how this industry operates. And I'm going to take it back to Tony because I want you to set the foundation. Yoguti, what are some of the things that hinder us from growth? But before you do that, I'm going to give Usista an opportunity to respond to the same question. And I was saying the other thing I liked, Zakes Okhulume ngayo, is seeing the opportunity in this time. And we're going to talk about it when we start talking about social media. But I wasn't bragging. I made more money in 2020 than I did any other year. But it was because I was forced to be innovative. I was forced to be innovative. I was forced to reposition myself and rebrand myself in a way that was going to attract brands. But we're going to talk about that later on. I just want to start to just how it's affected you. Please try and keep your answers short because there's a lot to talk about. And then I'll ask you to just answer and elaborate. You know, what are some of the dynamics that hinder us from growth as artists, as the creative industry?
I think for me personally, how it's like goes back to everything that Zakes no Tony no Thabo said as well. Uguti, kuno muntu behind the brand at the end of the day. So Nami behind me being an actress and all these other things, I'm a human being and going through my struggles like everyone else. So the issues of mental health are real. You go through that depression. It's a new thing, this pandemic. You know, at least there's a point where I can reference within 15 days the pandemic is obviously. It gives you a bit of that hope because you can reference it to something. So if something is brand new and it just seems like there's no light in sight, what do you do? Because the reality is, like Thabo said, contracts are being put on ice. What do you do? So I went through a similar thing where the reality is kids have to go to school, kids have to eat, like every other artist and every other person in every other industry. So and how do you even break out of that mental rut, right? So I love the reference you made as well of rebranding yourself. So I think, Nami, I had to force myself to get to a point where I just said, okay, Konje, Mangis Tintita, what else am I about? Usta, before she was just an actress, adjusted to this new normal. And I think that's what I did. But I'll talk about it more, about maybe other intersections and other opportunities within and making opportunities within the new normal.
And I think that's why we're having this conversation. Mm-hmm. The point of having this conversation is to bring it back to what are the solutions. We've been stuck as artists for a long time and we've complained for a long time, right? So this new normal is not really new for us, actually, because this new normal has existed for a very long time because we reached that ceiling way back. Yeah. And it is because of whatever it is that Butoni is going to share with us that hinders us from growth structurally, systematically, maybe a little bit politically. What hinders our growth as artists?
Yeah, there's a point that you made saying that, you know, one has been working for 33 years and been seen on television, that it doesn't mean that because you've been in the industry for 33 years, for 33 years. Maybe 15 of those years are being packed, but they have been fulfilled with your images. So you worked for 15 years, and the other 15 years is your image being all over the place. And that what makes the people have the perception that and now when you pass away, people get that shock of how. And then we have to put on 1,000 rand to bury this guy while he's been working for 3 years. And one of the reasons why that thing happens is that we get ourselves into contracts and we get ourselves into not understanding what those contracts are about. And in most cases, that 15 years of exploitation, that half of the 33 years, of the 30 years, that's where your contract is exploiting you. It's basically taking that little bit that you were supposed to be making to make up for other 15 years. So is the issues of laying the foundation of understanding what is it that I'm getting myself into when I'm signing this contract?
But can I get myself out of it?
Out of the
Do I have a
contract?
choice? Do
If-
artists have a choice?
Unfortunately, if you sign a contract, you sign a contract. It's basically saying that, that's it.
So what I'm saying is we're caught between a hard rock and a place, because if I don't sign it, then I don't work.
Yeah, if you don't sign it,
But
you
there's
don't
no
work.
other alternative.
But it's either, if, I would always encourage people to say, if you sign it, at least, even if you don't understand, just get someone, get a lawyer, get someone who can help you to make you understand what this is what it says. Because even when it comes with a vocab that we don't understand sometimes. Big words that we don't know what they're going to. The sentence, you understand the sentence says this, but it means something else. Right? So to get someone who can explain it to you and say, this is what it means.
Can I just pause you then, make this example for our audience to understand better the concept of what we are talking about? So in 1980, I think it was 1984, they came here, Bazoshutu Shaka Zulu, right? And I think my understanding, was it 1984? The budget was about, the budget was about 28 US million dollars.
Yeah.
It made it's made $5 billion US dollars to date, right? But the artists who are on that show haven't seen a cent of that 5 billion. And I think that's what you're talking about. But when we're talking earlier on, Zakes, it sounded like it's a little bit different in your industry.
Yeah, in our industry, it's
Well,
a
it's
bit
the same
different.
industry,
Maybe-
but
Yeah, well, we are in the same, we are one umbrella, the creative industry, but I think in the music industry, it's better than you guys, than artists, than actors. Because for a musician, the audio sound that you listen to has two contracts. So there's a master contract and there's a publishing contract. Right? So a master contract is the song that you're listening to in its completion, right? So that's a contract you have. So I take you into the studio, you record the music, I ask Tony to play a bass, I ask everyone here to contribute, and I then own that master as someone who has funded that particular process. So I own it because I paid for it, right? But I don't own the creative, how Tony played his bass. So I don't own his creativity, but I own the audio. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yes, it does.
Then Tony, I'll have to pay Tony for him to play, because he's then a session of some sort of like a musician who played this particular music creatively. But also at the same time, I also owe him money for creative if the song gets played on radio. So publishing, then I still need to pay him for the life of the song.
so that's where the difference is we don't get paid for the life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
Of the work.
I think the difference. That's where the difference is that actors don't have royalties of their, or I'd say their work.
I think
But with music, in perpetuity, not unless you have signed that right away, because you can also sign that right away.
Yes, for sure.
So you can sign it. So you can sign your master away and also sign your publishing away.
I think as writers for scripts, I think it's more or less the same like you, because if I write a script for the Playhouse, I write a script, they'll say, okay, we like the script, for a certain time, maybe for 6 months, you're not allowed because they have to pay for intellectual property for a certain time, which you're not allowed to perform this show somewhere for. I don't know whether you're not allowed to perform this show until you finish with the Playhouse. Maybe they'll freeze it for 6 months. I think even Google Mzansi Magic, they're doing the very same thing like that. If you come up with a Kasi story, they say we're gonna freeze it for for quite a long time.
Yeah, it's you know, our industries are more or less the same but different. So in the music industry, so you have a master royalties, right? You have a publishing royalties. Then you have needle time royalties.
Yes.
Sorry, repeat that.
So you have master royalties,
Publishing.
you have publishing royalties, you have needle time royalties.
Needle time.
Okay,
So-
can you
so can I
explain
ask
that
something?
the last one, legal time?
So, making an example, I take Usis and I sign her as an artist, right? So it's a contract between my company, my own productions, to Ayanda. I signed her as an artist. And she only knows how to sing. She's not a writer. Then I ask Usista to write her music, right? Then she has a song. Then I ask Tony to create the music that Usista wrote, the melody. Then I ask for Utoni to create the music, for a session musician now to come and play, because someone said, hey, mfunite zothi ba ba ba, a bass. Then that bass guitarist which is going to play that ba ba ba, that is a needle time. So he has no creative to the song. All he is a session musician. So he's going to be paid for his session. Because he's here, perhaps he's going to ask for like 1,500 for being a session musician. He gets that 1,500, but he will also be supposed to get money when the royalties, that needle time amount of money, the fact that he played that song.
Saze sabaluleka isikole because ngididekile ngiyile sifundi ngiyile esikoleni ngidideke nje kodwa ngiyile esikoleni.
I don't know, I'm trying to make it simple.
No, you are simplifying it, but I think what I'm trying to say is the dynamics of it are so they're so intertwined, and it's so important to understand what each aspect means so that you know what you're getting yourself into. And I think that's the point I wanted to make. Kubalulekile ukuthi wazi ukuthi ungena entweni enjani. But Thabo, you were raising a point that was important when you're talking about theater, because I wanted to go there to try and understand, because I know you've dabbled in theater quite a lot. So bengifuna understand if it's the same in theater. You've answered. So maybe the question I want to ask you is, kuhluke kuphi ke ku TV nase theater? Because enye into mhlambe that we need to establish, because kunalento abantu especially intsha engathi iyabaphoqa ukuthi fanele mangabe ngiyi-artist fanele ngibe ku-TV, otherwise if I'm not on TV then I'm not an artist, you know. But uthola ukuthi izinto zingcono ka-theater than kwa-TV. So imaphi mhlawumbe ama takeouts esingaphuma nawo ekutheni mhlawumbe yini is being in theater better than being on television? What are the pros, what are the cons?
You know, for TV, we all know that you go there for the shoot, you shoot the particular story, you finish, you get your money. But before that, after that, goes for editing and everything and everything. Once you see that thing on TV, you've already finished all your money. So you look at me like in your figure, I'm coming to you and say, hey, my bra, how's 2 beers? They said, why 1 beers? Because I see you on TV. Because I don't have money. That's why most of us, we say, Imalaga TV, Imali Bogi. Because it doesn't stay in your pocket. Because every time this money comes to you, already you have so many debts, you know. And TV, to some people, it looks like luxury. You are on TV, everybody says, hey, what is autography and I'm a selfie and all that. But abeko abantu abasafarisha kakhulu more than people abaga TV. Because you shoot today, you finish today, you get your money, and then Yagma Productions and everything. I say Kimal. Coming to your question is, I think both Gyafan, because here at the Playhouse, they'll contract me for 2 months to do a show. Then after that, Peli. Even same thing on TV.
It's like a sessionist.
Sessionist, you know. So that's why, I don't know whether I'm jumping the gun. That's why it's very important for us as artists to have something to fall on. Like create your own company, start creating things that are gonna make your money aside. Because that's why people, they always say, but uvela TV but uhamba ngeenyawo. Mawuthi umuntu eTexini ngicela ungihlehlela athi ngeke phela kubona ku TV la. You see, it's one of those things because that's why I'm saying maybe I'm jumping the gun.
Yeah, we'll get to that khona manje. We'll get to that khona manje. But wrapping up this part of the session, I want somebody to talk to the aspect of ownership and the importance of ownership, and why we're being hindered from owning our work, because it looks like Zakes, Nina, you own your work.
Not really. Yes, I happen to own it, but I think I'm speaking in terms of like the whole industry. I was lucky when I went to school, so for every song I'm on, I own, you know. But this is because I went and I studied, you know. But I also signed artists whom they work, I own, right? So probably they're gonna be in the industry for a while until they themselves are capable enough to own their own thing. So there's a school anyway. I just said I chose to go to school without my music career, you know, but some people, they are learning the business through their career, right? Yeah. So I think maybe that's the difference. So you can learn with your career, some will learn at school. So when they go to career, when you see them, when you see their images, they already know. Yeah. Or you can choose to not to go to school, and then you can learn with your mistakes while you're in the industry. Right?
That's a very important point.
Because you cannot avoid, the school. Yeah. And so, but what I would always, I advise, son, is at least when you get into the conversation, just make sure that contract ends. Yeah. Because whoever that is expecting you, at least that day is coming. So for as long as it ends, just make sure, even if how bad it is, that contract, but for as long as it has a date where it ends, and it needs you to come back and renew, then you've won the game. Because then you can always get into the space and be like, okay, I don't understand what's happening here. I'm just going to sacrifice my 3 or 4 years or 5 years of this. After 5 years, I'm going to come back and negotiate.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I wanted somebody to speak to ownership, but we're running out of time because I really want to get into the innovation aspect of this conversation. Star, there's something you wanted to say in response to what Zakes was saying.
Just that emphasis of education.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's extremely important. Ukuthi ukubaleka kwesikole kusiza lana ngoba you're able to even start saying, okay, this part is a legal part. Yes, I might not be understand what it means legally, but it means, okay, let me consult with someone oyifundele lento ongangichazela. But the importance of education helps tremendously ngoba you're able to even start knowing ukuthi le product that I'm offering is inyama, it's content. Content is business. Content is gold, right? So the importance of being a layered creative is extremely important. And by being layered, you are that person who, yes, I'm a performer, or maybe I'm just an actress or a musician, but I also come with a bit of background in terms of understanding what the business of my art is, right? And
Sorry,
yes.
And you don't always have to be that person. You can surround yourself with the people who know, right?
Absolutely.
You don't always have to be that person.
You don't always have to be that person, but at least mangabe une a bit of that understanding because unwadile in a way.
Yeah.
You are able to even access the people who can help you.
Yeah.
So you can even put your team together. Ngoba where would you even start in terms of saying, okay, so I am a brand in terms of being this artist, and so that means I need a manager, I need this person, but that's their responsibility. So I always emphasize, Ngabella, the importance of just being a bit of a multi-layered creative, so that you're able to, while you're being a creative, got the footy, there's also these aspects to you that have an educational aspect to them. And it's free. Most of these, sometimes right now with the pandemic, there's so many online courses that people can access that they're not accessing. So there are so many online courses that you can use this time to say, okay, let me learn about the business of the arts. Which institution online offers it? Let me get online, let me register and start doing it. What other opportunities are there, especially with this time of the pandemic, being maybe sometimes an opportune time for us to learn other industries. So that's my...
That's your
Yeah,
2 cents. And
that's my 2 cents,
And
yeah.
I'm not changing my story.
I am not changing my story.
Okay, so you keep repeating this word, multi-layered artist, being a multi-layered artist, right? And I want to now get the conversation into the aspect of that being multi-layered, that multi-layeredness. Ningixolele ngumZulu, ngikhuluma isiZulu kahle kahle, and I don't even know how to translate that, but that multi-layeredness. And I want us to talk about 2 aspects. And I'll use a business term. So I come from a business background. I was previously in corporate. I actually left a very cushy, lashy job and decided I wanted to be a struggling artist, which I chose. I'm going to be a struggling artist. But I have to be very honest, I think my background in marketing and advertising has really helped me be able to see opportunity where most people wouldn't, right? And I want to talk about, in marketing terms, we call it market penetration. And then there's what we call market diversification. So, italente lami nginalo manje, ngikulesi space. Italente lami uk-actor, but I'm in this industry. How else do I penetrate this industry such that I can grow? How else, what solutions can we give as to ngila? Angisakhulumi ngokudiversify manje usuyaka farming or uya entweni ongayazi, but ngila. How do I grow in this industry? Speaking to the multi-layer concept that you are talking about. And I also want somebody to address the thing of kunabantu who are just plain artists, like I just sing or I just perform and that's all I want to do. So what message do you have for somebody like that?
But can we make an example of exactly of you? You at least come with something else that you can fall back on, right? Which means you are already a multi-layered artist because you can draw on that within your creative industry. Mangabe, you can mix it in terms of you bring your branding, in terms of how you can teach other artists maybe how they can see themselves as a brand. You can maybe diversify and go into that within you being a creative, right? So that's what I talk to as well. What my response to what you've just said is, that's why it's so important to, maybe even you're at the farming thing you spoke about. Suddenly, better for this time. Right? You're not saying suddenly give up everything that you're about. But what if that is something you can fall back on? Okay, so just for this time, so what about I just go into ukulima and offer amadumbe and
in my industry because I'm a creative.
Yeah, I also disagree with Uta.
I'm a creative.
Fundamentally,
which is why I'm saying kule industry. How do we innovate here?
Yeah. Okay.
I always hear people talking about something to fall back on, go and study something to fall back on. You know, you remember, Tony, we were in Port Elizabeth this other time, and we've just found out that the creative industry had employed more than the mining industry.
GDP, yeah.
And it contributed more with GDP than the mining industry for the very first time. And the creative industry is not actually supported. Now imagine when this industry could be supported and how much money they could make and how many people could employ. Mind you, we have more than 50%, or I think we're like 67% of the youth in South Africa. And the creative industry at least employs about 80% of the youth. You know? So a creative industry really speaks to the youth, and it addresses exactly what the government is trying to address, youth employment. So when you take 3 years and go, you love the industry, you love the music industry, you love the creative industry, you love acting. That's what you love. And you take your 3 years, you go study farming. 3 years. Take that 3 years and study the industry and how to make money and see what's going to happen. Because that's exactly what happened to someone like myself. I took 4 years of my life and studied the music industry. I don't have anything to fall back on. I fall back on the same industry. So that's why I will always be different than the next guy. Because I understand this industry so many times, because I spend time in it. So if I need to study and need to diversify, I will diversify within. There's nothing wrong with diversifying outside, because as a business person, I have other interests diversifying outside. But this is plus, this is 1.3 billion industry plus. So in 1.3 billion industry, telling me that we are not sleeping with 200,000 at least per annum, then it means there's something wrong that we are doing within this particular industry. So when you are making 100,000 and you want to make 200,000, then the question is, if the exit is 400,000, what could be the input? If I want to make 400,000 rand at the end of the year, and I've been making 50,000 by acting alone. So to make extra 10,000, what do? Maybe I need to write.
Sure.
To make another what I need to open the company. To do it then and then, maybe I need to have people, whatever creative thing that you may do to diversify within the very same industry. Because there's one question that I want to ask with regards to the acting industry, which is something that I want to know if it's allowed or not allowed. Because it's something that you throw in. Aren't you allowed to ask as an actor to write a certain episode? Can't you present it and say, the next episode actually I've got something with whatever that I'd like to, whatever. Don't you do that?
Where the limitation
and then you
is.
charge for that creative?
That's where the limitations are, is the thinking. Uguti. And we had this conversation earlier where I was saying, I think we limit ourselves by thinking of ourselves as artists and not creatives, which is why I loved how you introduced yourself as a creative. Because actually the word itself, creative, comes from the word creation. I create. Khona okwasixhopha when into besiyenza sasimasixhopheka, meaning usikrosile kahle kahle. Wathi mayisikrosa, and then this person said to me, it's okay, we are creators, we'll just create something else. And I think it is about that paradigm shift of understanding ukuthi I'm actually not just about the function of ukucula or of ukact, but I'm actually more than. Now sesikhuluma the difference between the talent and the gift. Sure. The gift is that you're a creative. The talent is that I can perform. You are manifesting the talent. And hence I always go back to, I don't define myself as an artist more than I do as a storyteller, because I can tell stories in any way, which means I can tell a story by performing, but also I can tell a story by writing. When there's no work, or singing, but I have a shower voice, so, or singing, if there's no work, right? But Thabo, before you come in, I used to get irritated, and I know a lot of artists get irritated when people say, yeah, but I'm artist, awafuna progress in the industry, which is why I was talking about that market penetration. Because there's this notion that if you're an actor, the progression is that you must then become a director, and then you must then become a producer, right? And I don't know if, Butoni, at some point you want to talk to the notion, whether it's the wrong, right notion, but Thabo, I'll give you an opportunity to speak.
What I wanted to say is, Zokuluma Jangama actors. Not all of us, this is Obama actors, people. Everybody wants to be an actor. But forgetting which we all creatives. You know? Everybody knows me as an actor. But behind being an actor, I'm a writer. I create stories. For example, you know, kunente GBV all around South Africa. Write a small skit. Come to the playhouse and say, can we take this and to 10 schools? Go to municipality and say, you are talking about vandalizing izinto zikamasipala. I can write a skit about that and tell people you can protest as much as you want, but don't destroy izinto zikamasipala. That's creative. You know how much is that? When you take it to Umaspala and look at this and say, okay, I'm giving you 10 shows. You say, okay, 10 shows. Each show for me, because I'm going to pay my actors, I'm going to have transport. I want 50,000.
Sorry. You know, I'm sorry, young Tint, and sorry, Tony, before you come in. I think, Sis Ayanda, we have to be very honest to people at home who are watching this thing and people who are here. And for us to be honest, because so that we this very dialogue is going to get a fruit that it deserves to, which is what's all. It's tough to get money from the municipality or the government. It might be easy for me because I'm Zakes Bakwini and I'm from television. But people, most of the people, they don't even know where to start. Or even when they know, people who are officials at the government departments, they don't even listen to them. They listen to some people, not to them. And to those that they listen to might happen by exploiter. We are in a country where it's not about what you have, but it's about who you know. So let us So let us be honest enough in saying when we give people ideas, we try to make sure that they detach from relying on government and to rely on their own audience. So I will take what he's saying, Thabo, and say you can flip it. Instead of, we are in the industry of numbers. That's the industry we're in. We're not in the industry of anything else, but we're in the industry of numbers. When we have numbers, then we have money. We have YouTube, which is free. You don't have to speak to government. You don't have to speak to the councillor, or even the MEC. You don't even need a proposal. It's there. You can upload this thing now. We're actually on YouTube currently.
Well, that is what made Lasizwe, right?
Of course. Today, Lasizwe makes plus minus 40,000 or 50,000 after 21 days. That's where money is. So podcast or creating things for YouTube where you don't have to beg anybody. That's where we should go. That's where you should go. That's where I should go. That's where everybody we should go. We have got phones currently now which are shooter at 4K and whatsoever, with just 3 iPhones that you can borrow for an hour. You can shoot a scene, we beg it, because people don't want to look at quality at first. They just want to, they
just want the story.
They want a story. There are these guys called Ikurunda Kids from Nigeria, which I recognize everywhere. They are shooting, mimicking music videos with their phones. They are popular. They've got numbers. So I would say the energy that you are going to put in trying to chase someone with a proposal, take that very same energy. Uvelukale, ngefoni yakho Samsung or whatsoever, shoot those zinto, put it out there on YouTube, call it whatever, create links. Take people, take a boy and the lava will repost and whatsoever. That's where you are. Your numbers are growing. Ask people to subscribe. In no one, you'll have about 10,000 subscribers. Ads are going to play on your YouTube channel. Then you're going to get money. That's where you need to go. Try and run away from being dictated by the government.
Which speaks to ownership, right?
Yeah.
Which speaks to ownership, which is such an important aspect of this conversation. Is
Yeah.
that we're unable to make money because we don't own our content.
Yes.
All right.
And I also, just going back to what you were asking in terms of creating opportunities within what you do. You know, when I was doing Isidingo, I was actually a researcher on Isidingo. I was an actor and also a researcher. So I used to go to the mines and go underneath there and listen, watch, look, make up stories, come up with stories, research those stories, come up with them and give them to the writers and pitch to the writers, and then go on set and go act out those stories that I researched. So I was just saying that it was also another part of getting into that. But the thing that I always get challenged with, even within our industry, is that are we asking the right questions? Just to say, if ufuna ukwenza into, like, are you really asking the right question of saying, how can I get maybe a certain thing? How can I create a certain thing? What can help me to do 1, 2, 3, 4? I'll give you an example of these guys with Instagram. Basically, the question that he asked, which I thought it was right at the time, was to say, how can we share pictures? How can I share my picture and your picture? Okay, they came up with an idea of creating a platform to do Instagram, so I can share pictures with people anywhere else in the world. In terms of us, again, asking the right question would be, people would come up with an idea of saying that, I want a sport, is that the right question? But the right question then would be, how can I create an environment where people can come, have fun, look at art, or look at DVDs or whatever it is that you have, and share an experience of having coffee from Kenya, Ghana, and all these other places. So those questions are right, but it's how you put it, and then how you create environment around it that will make people to get attracted to what you're trying to deliver.
I really like the way that because I want to delve back into social media. But guys, I have to say this. I'm an author. I'm a published author, self-published. And when I wrote my book a year and a half ago, 3 years before that, I didn't know that I could have ever written a book, and a thick book at that, which was 420 pages. And by the way, Unbecoming to Become was one of the top 20 best-selling books of 2020 in South Africa. And it was the first time I'd written a book, right? And I mean, the process of how I even got to that and why I wrote the book is a whole other story, and it's another story for now. But I think I'm trying to make the point here. If you tap into the creativity, if you tap into the gift, it will manifest. What is in you will manifest wherever you are, because the gift is to create. And so my thinking was, afterwards, it was a revelation for me that said, actually, I'm a storyteller. I'm not just an actor. I'm a storyteller, and I can tell stories in many ways, which then gave me a different way or lens to look at this industry. How else do I tell stories? Thabo in the industrial theater, because it really is about communication. Where do I use this comms? If I'm speaking to the corporate space, if I'm speaking to the political space, where do I use my gift to tell the story? And one of the key things for me that I've managed to do is to position myself as somebody who is a communicator for grassroots level. So my communication is multi-layered. I can hold my own in the boardroom, but ngithume ngiyoncenga ugogo, ngizomchazela futhi ugogo uzoyizwa. I understand. That has been my positioning of my brand in terms of how I communicate or how I tell stories. So, Star, I'm going to give you an opportunity to add because you wanted to say something. Should I go? Yeah, please.
Okay, I'm still on Amadumbe. No, I want to go back to that. What I was trying to say actually on that one is to say, before we are creatives, kukhona something else that we are. Whatever else, right? So that's what I'm talking to. The being multi-layered can be within the industry, like Ayanda has so beautifully put it. Maybe you are, as a storyteller, very generally as a creative. So that means you can probably even pitch beautiful concepts to advertising agencies, because ad and you always just come up with some creative thing in your mind, and that's where you always feel like this is. I can probably challenge that ad without naming a brand, but maybe that's just where your mind is. But before then, usuzofa na, based on Uguti Isimo right now, you literally cannot survive. Right? So I'm talking to that, Uguti, like literally, if ngabela uyawazi ukwenza something else, are you going to say, I'm not going to do that something else? Ngoba, I am just a thorough through and through artist. Right? And khona abantu ngabela, and like you said, Zakela, which is so beautiful, good Mauti, ngabela, everyone's got a phone. But sometimes the situation of where you are now with this pandemic, you are not even inspired to do that. And it's probably just for Iskashan. But while you're going through that, what else can you do to just put food on the table? So I'm talking to that good, yes, you are a creative, like 100%. But what else, in the meantime, can you do? Because before you were an artist, you are a layer of something you are. And I know it always sounds like you're making such a stupid example. Was when jam, right? Because and
you can tell a beautiful story about ujam wako.
Absolutely. Ujam wako, you package it, and you're now supplying your local spa. So kukhona something engenayo esidini while you're pushing your creativity, because I'm about the art and literally, and I'm pushing my YouTube channel. But now you're going to sit on that talent that your grandmother taught you of just package these peaches, package it nicely and sell it to your local supplier. So that's the intersection that I'm talking to us about, Uguti. Maybe this is the time, because it's a time that is unprecedented that we cannot reference. So in the meantime, what else are you about as the self, the person, the disruptor of the creative that you are? What else can you do? So let people see you. Wow, ubani usa supplier Woolworths and usenda abo these packaged jams and stuff, but you're still pushing your passion and your creativity, which is what you're about.
Sisthandwa, I think how bekufanele kube khona ibhena yaka Department of Agriculture la. Besiga ibhena yaka Department of Agriculture la, because ngempela uSithawe pusha le jam yamazambane namadumbe na peaches no jamu, and she's so passionate about it. But mina ngisala innovation here in our space.
But I think I get the essence of what Uta is trying to say.
Yeah.
You know, I think maybe she's just choosing to make an example about agriculture.
Yes.
But I think you just tap into what you
diversification.
Just tap into what you know.
Yeah.
If you know, like I'm a musician, but I can dance.
Sure.
So if for music, try abantu abaculi, let me see. Okay, I can also dance, or I can also write. I can also write film music. I can also do other things, like tapping into what you do, or if you can, whatever. Sure. So I get you.
Yeah.
But there's something that is so funny about how much detached we are, especially, there's this thing, I call it actually segregation. But they put it nicely, they call it market segmentation. But that's segregation. We are segregating people, It's the same thing as people call it PR. It's propaganda. Propaganda is what propaganda is. Yeah. Then we are calling it PR right now. But PR is coming, it stems from propaganda. It's serious when you dissect it. It's propaganda. Make people think that Ayanda is the best, this book is the best. And marketers sit down and think about that, and PR people, and make your book be the best. But when you crunch down, you sit down, you read this book. Actually, this book is a bad book. It cannot be a #1 seller than the other one that I read. However, it's just well PR. Probably someone might even say.
No, but uze ukhuluma propaganda. Khona nje abaqaba manga nje.
Which is baphinda bawa PR lawo manga. Akithi. That's what I'm saying. So babe wa PR man. So So I'm saying all of these things to say this. Even in her example, that in terms of like being detached. So just a little story. I'm turning 40, right? So ngihlale elokishini kwaMashu for 20 years, which means manje I'm 20 years away from kwaMashu. So 20 years ngihlala kwaMashu, 20 years now away. So manje ngikwimeli. But 2 years ago, which means was like 18 years ngiphuma ngasekhaya kwaMashu. Ngifika umamncane wami on a Thursday. Ngiyambheka uthi hey Zakhele ngicela ungiphe 100 rand ngithi hey mamncane anginamali mangithi emontweni amaheda no why ngicela ungiphe 10 rand because I want to buy whatever a beer. I think what she wanted to buy a beer but I should ngiyamcwathela ngo 10 rand, right? So ngiyawufuna emontweni nami then ngithola 100 rand ngithi awunawo 100 rand uzongisiza mfana wami bambiza ngonke ekhaya uzongisiza nke mfana wami yazini hey ubuswana ubengicela u10 rand ngithi hayi mamncane nini khona ngo Monday ngathi awu mamncane kahle ngo Monday usewutholile lo 10 rand hayi bonke eventually ubuswana uyaqhamuka wathi buswana usakhona lo 10 rand wajabula ubuswana. So for me I saw how detached I am from this thing, thinking ukuthi in 4 days umuntu akasawudinga u10 rand, but I was reminded ukuthi no elokishini umuntu usawudinga u10 rand abewufuna 4 days ago. Now imagine someone ongakaze ahlale elokishini how detached they are. Then mina uhlale la lokishini but ongasa understand ukuthi elokishini ungawusela u4 days, ungawusela u10 rand for 4 days. You know? Yeah. But I've lived this life. Now I'm saying, so even in your example, we talk about local suppliers, Spa, and so, these people that are talking about, even we are talking Spa and a local supplier. You are not even thinking about who the multi manufacture who to it. So this is how far, exactly. This is how far you are even in your example. I'm trying to say this is how far you are. Because this conversation is saying because we have access. And somehow we have a way and asking they just don't know what you are saying.
I love what you're saying about access. I really love what you're saying about access. Because so many of us get a lot of calls, DMs, inboxes about I want to industry. And often what a lot of youth say is ngifuna ukuba act. And then you ask ukuthi ubawuthe react. Uyakwazi act? Athe ngiyakwazi uact. Uacte kuphi? Hayi bayayibasho nje ekhaya uthi ngiyahlekisa yabo nje ngiyahlekisa umuntu nje hayi yabo lento nje ingifanele bayasho nje ekhaya bazosho phela vele kini noma yabo. But then I often say to young people, maybe you are not an actor. And you need to be exposed to the industry to understand what you are. Because every aspect of the value chain system is storytelling. So what I usually do is, when I'm doing a production, I'll then say, I don't know how many people have gone through BOM, which was the production house for Isibaya. And I'll say, can you take this young person, just take them through the value chain? Because abantu abaningi bafuna ukuze-setting. Yes, I'm going to take them through the value chain. Today, there are youngsters who are employed as editors, which is another part of storytelling. Because when you are an editor, you have to decide to tell this story. It's still part of storytelling. There are people who are in wardrobe who came in saying they want to act, but then realized no. Within the value chain, I can still manifest my gift. I can do better here.
Actually, I want to dress actors.
Yes, I want to dress actors. Yeah. Actually, I don't want to act. And that's why I love that word, their access. Because I think creating access and platforms where our people can be exposed to the industry so that they can understand what it is that they actually want to do, how the creativity manifests. All right. I don't know if I've said enough.
Okay. I just also wanted to add in terms of the after you have gotten the access, then what do? I always see people relax or they want to, but I like young people. I like when you introduce young people to these things, there's something that drives them, There's something that drives them that wants to do things and they want to ask this and whatever. I like people like that. Because there's nothing more important to someone like someone who's thirsty for knowledge or doing something. And uzmisele, uyabona, every time you introduce this, uzmisele, ufuna ukuyenza, and abuze imibuzo, or even call you at night, like 9 o'clock, like, hey, dude, ngilele, ngicela ungifonele kusasa, ekuseni, you know? So, it's that thing of saying, how do I then master what I'm being exposed to? How do I get there? And then after mastering it is to say then, how can I make it better? Because when you get to a certain, let's say you get to a production 80s, right? And they do things the certain way. Like if you, more especially when you do the soapies, they do the same thing every day. Ziyakhathazana sometimes, you know how it goes, where even as an actor, it also gets to you, where you do the same character every single day. Like, ungangivusa uthi, "Nqolosi, ngamshaya manje." Because there's nothing in me that I have to draw from somewhere or what, because I've done it so many times and for a long time. And so that's why I sometimes feel tired when I'm in soapies. But we're different as people, Other people do love soapies, other people love drama, others love comedy. I just don't think that I'm made for a long-term soapy. Because as an actor, ngiyakhathala. So I always want to look for things to push the bar a little bit, to push certain standards within the production. And sometimes within the production, because there are people who are hired to do that. I'm writers who are hired to say, this is how we're going to do your story. Like, no, I don't want my story to be like that. I had a dream, I saw this thing, ipuma. So you become, going back to what I was trying to say, to say push yourself, to say you find things at a certain level in that production. So how do you get there and say, I see how they do it, now I understand it, I want to master this thing and push myself to the next level. Because Bati, for you to master something, you have to be
What you've never done before.
1,000, is it 1,000 hours?
1,000 hours.
Oh, 1,000 hours. You have to do something 1,000 hours. But it doesn't mean that you have to do one thing over and over again. It can be that thing, but pushing different levels and different engagements within the very same space that you're operating within to make something better. In that way, I always say, if you can do that, then I call you a master or die. So we are shy much. No one can stop him. And I just think maybe in terms of innovation, that's where maybe we need to plug in after you've been given the opportunity, after you have understood the issues that we spoke about the contracts, what you're getting yourself into in terms of owning stuff and, pushing yourself to the next level.
Yeah, and also, Tony, another thing that we need to do as creatives, it's very important to research. I'm saying that because, somebody will come to me or to anyone, a petty script just with 4 pages, and then actually it's the same movie. You understand anything I show you? And in that script, kunama panoi au 6, kunama helicopter, kune damu elizovuleka phakathi nendawo. You understand what I'm saying? It is very important to understand ukwenza a research, more especially when you want to be a writer or create some stories on anything. It is very important to do research.
Asibuyise emuva ngoba sesikwi dialogue yabantu abangazuthi bayangena kwi-industry.
Okay.
And ngifuna sibuyise emuva ukusiza laba abakwi-industry already, because kunabantu stuck and we
Yes.
need solutions because we are stuck. So there's a question I'd asked earlier. Ngiyayibuza, ngizoqala ngawo Thabo. We're talking about creativity and innovation. Social media. Is it a curse or is it an opportunity?
For me, ngizothatha ikhanda lami nje ngilifake kuyilento kwi-chopping block. Ngizothi it's an opportunity. Why?
I thought you were going to say it's a curse.
Ngicabanga ukuthi mina i-opportunity, because right now, we can't access indawo eningi lezi zokuthi si do our plays, do whatever. So social media is the way to go right now, because you need to, I had even here like Playhouse, They say, okay, rehearse your play, then bring your cameras, and then we're going to stream those things. I think, for me, it's an opportunity for now. I can say so.
But Tony?
It's a curse. Only.
I love it. I love to see it.
It's a curse only if you use it for unnecessary and wrong things.
Exactly.
So if you're going to put your creative work, like Zakes was saying, you can borrow a camera, borrow something, put things together, put your stuff on YouTube and do this and this. And if you're going to do it if you're going to use social media for that and push your work, more than push your image and how much you have trained your backside and how much muscles you have and all those kind of things. It becomes kind of like a vain thing that if I look at your page, it's all I want to see, but I want to see your work, I want to see your creativity. What is it that you can do beyond showing me how well you built? Or showing me what kind of a cocktail you're drinking? Or showing me what emhlanga or hang out nabobani? But if you use it to say, I'm going to shift it a little bit, to say, I want to take a little scene that I want to shoot of myself, or mhlambe with another fellow actor, get someone who knows how to handle a camera, or there are those sticks that people buy. But do you know those sticks where you can put it? Yeah. You frame it nicely, you put it there, and then you hoy that scene, and then you tag all of us. Tag Zakes, tag Star, tag Ayanda, tag Toad, tag Thabo, tag them, all of them. Or to please watch this talent. Listen, out of 20 of us, one of us will get touched by your performance. One of us will like, hey, and mhlawumbe, in out of the 20 of us, one is probably working on a script or he's working on something. And he's looking for something that is closer to what you're doing. And you get an opportunity to be called to say, please come and audition for this thing, and let's see what you can do. Now, if you're busy, that had nothing to do with your work, you have missed a greater opportunity to showcase your talent and using social media as a greater platform.
Bengithi ngifuna umeqo Zakes. Ngizokweqa ngoba ubusuthe ukuthi fahla usiphendulile kancane, but ngizobuyela kuwena ngifuna ukunika usithide iopportunity. Yes. Yes.
I absolutely mean, I love this part here of the conversation because it goes back to Madume Batsubuyela lap. Guys, the importance of us as creatives getting out of our comfort zones and learning new technologies is extremely important. Now, even about auditions, I'm sure, Thabo, you know, you're auditioning and you're getting yourself ready and you say, what's the address? They say, no, self-tape. If I don't even know a self-tape, how am I going to place the camera and what do I do? And you'll start shooting with easy, just lula in the background, and stuff. There is even a toolkit for that, in terms of how do you self-tape. So it means we need to now learn a crossover of within our creative industry to learn new ways and use technology so that it's not a curse. So like Utoni was saying, so that it's for our benefit. Now it's a global village. I can, like exactly what Tony was saying, I can do a performance now or post a scene and someone in New York or someone says, I love that. Is there a way that we can collaborate with you being among creatives as a South Africa? Or do you know what I'm saying? Because now you've learned to just say, oh, okay, social media yenziwa kanje. So instead of fearing it and seeing it as a curse and that we're scared of technology, let's learn to say, how can I use this thing that I'm not fearing it and use it for my benefit? As we're here, we're streaming it, and we don't know who's seeing this and what opportunities lie, just based on a conversation that was being streamed at the Playhouse. So that's what I'm about to go to. Let's also learn other industries and how we can collaborate. What can be a beautiful crossover of working with Zakes, who's not just a musician, but you were CEO of Sony, right? Yes, right? But it means, so kushukuthi, you must have a mind that thinks in terms of strategy and branding and, and thinking like that. What are the crossovers within our industries, that we can use? Who do you know within your space, maybe who's a product developer or who's a scientist, right? And how can I use that, that those two industries now talk to each other, so that we're not only playing in safe spaces with the box, or within the box of being a creative and the comfort zone. So now I'm stretching myself outside of my industry, using technology, using innovative ways of thinking and design thinking. Some people call it design thinking. So maybe let's look at it like that.
I'm going to touch on two things that you're going to say because we need to close the conversation now, so I'm going to ask for your last inputs. But one of the things we're talking about when you're talking about self-tape and how sometimes as artists we're irritated, which I'm not actually going to walk into an audition room because that's the norm, that is what I know. But actually the opportunity there is that you get to practice this thing 20 times until you perfect it.
Yes.
Because when you walk into an audition room, you have 1 or 2 chances at the most. And that's it, right? But actually there's an opportunity there, and I'm just saying, let's see the opportunities in the innovation and not, there are definitely some disadvantages, but let's look for the opportunities in how we are being innovative instead of always saying, "Uthi, this new norm is not working because how it used to work is like this, and so this is what I'm used to." Naturally, as beings, very asithandi change. Change is difficult for us, but in this new norm, we are forced to, right? And then there was something else you said about, in fact, all of you have said it, Zakes has said it, Tony, Butab, you've said using it for the right thing, right? There are many people, I think artists don't necessarily not like social media, thespians don't necessarily not like social media. I think they have a beef with people who are cast from social media. So my request is then to say, if you've had an opportunity of having been cast because somebody saw your talent and let's see, is there something here, is there substance here? Work at it, like Butoni was saying. Then work at excelling at it. Work at developing yourself, because that tape alone, or I post on social media, is not going to sustain you. You have to work at it. Once you've gotten your foot in the door, then I've got to work at developing this thing. Research, let me understand the industry. Let me understand how this works. Maybe this is actually not what I want to do. Maybe what I want to do is subtitle. Maybe what I want to do is art department. So expand yourself and open your mind to knowledge and working at understanding how this thing works so that I know where to fit. Okay, so I'm going to, as we close, talk about, can we talk about the power of collaborations, right? Power of collaborations. I mean, I made an example to you guys earlier about how do we beat this beast? Because this is a beast, ne? The Sonys are big, the DSTVs and Mnets of this world are big, but actually, mangase nonke nihlale phansi nama artists nisasenzi lutho. Kungama yonke into. Kodwa saka understand low power, so that's not what I'm saying, because I understand low power. So how do we now beat the beast? How do we go ahead of the beast so that the beast works for us? Power of collaborations. Can somebody talk to the power of collaborations, and how do we make it work? You know, I did a film, for example, where I wasn't paid my usual rate, but I understood the vision, and it was somebody who was in the industry who said, you know, they sold their house and to raise money to be able to shoot this film, and this film has done phenomenally well, but they called in favors from actors that they knew in the industry. He was an actor in the industry. This was his dream to shoot this film, and he shot the film because of the favors and the collaborations that happened, and he made a lot of money. He made a lot of money and then made sure Uguti, some of this money comes back to us. So can somebody talk to that power of collaborations? Are we able to collaborate as artists? In fact, are we willing to collaborate as artists? That's the other question.
Actually, Zakes owes me a collaboration.
There we
Which
go.
one? The music.
Well, a couple of
Yeah. There's a musician, a blind opera singer. What's his name? Andre. He's a talent man. The one who's blind. I think we are. Yes, or blind. The Italian. Yes. He recently did the most beautiful performance now, last year. Collaborated with dancers, these beautiful performance artists, and they did like an outside performance in Italy, in this beautiful place. And that was a collaboration of ceramists. These ones were who did the sculpture park and the dancers, and Yena as the opera singer. Here was a beautiful collaboration of 3 different genres in one. And that performance was streamed live. You can Google it and find it. And it was just literally about adding to the pandemic in terms of how sad people were, lockdown, people are in lockdown. So you are thinking out of the box and you're saying, within Langikon, who can I work with and what can we do and contribute to something? They made people happy by just the performance of 3 different genres collaborating. You know, you would think umuntu owenza ama sculptures in the sculpture park ngihlangana nabo as a dancer and an opera singer. So there are various ways that we can collaborate and do something beautiful and contribute to this time and really make people happy and just take away this think outside of the box and see how more effective we are if we don't just think in silos, you won and you're frustrated, you know. So stepping out is always good.
But you've got to have willing participants, right?
Absolutely.
That's the other thing.
Absolutely.
So, njengoba nje uZakes ekweleta uThoni angazi
Yes.
uba was it
So
because
Zakes,
uZakes
please.
was not willing or what is, you've got to have willing participants. Other opportunities, guys, opportunities, what innovative opportunities do we see in the creative sector apart from the collaborations? I mean, KZN's done something really beautiful now where the TV and film industry was only really in Johannesburg, but what we've done in KZN now is develop the industry in KZN. Are there opportunities in other provinces, and what does that mean? Are there opportunities in things like heritage? Look at what Mbuso Khoza is doing. He dominates.
Yeah.
He
The
dominates
cultural-
that cultural space because but what he's done is he's also become a multi-layered artist who not only sings but tells the story.
Yeah.
So the creativity behind this artist is just on another level. So where else, as we close, where else do we find opportunity, and what do you want to leave people with in terms of this particular topic, being innovative in this space, so that now that we are here, we're still and we've been here for a long time, singathola umnyango seceleni singaphumela kuwona ozosisiza. Sizakala kuphi kanjani?
Okay. I think we just need to understand some things here. What business are we in? We're in business of numbers. We're not in a business of acting. We're not in a business of singing music. We're in a business of numbers. McDonald's is in a business of property, not of selling burgers, but property. McDonald's is about property. But now they are selling burgers. But their core business is property. Our business is numbers. Because you get respected by the number that you draw in any production, or by the number that people are watching your music, or they're buying your music. So we're in a business of numbers at the end of the day.
As you continue, just to add, hence you now have to add how many followers you have when you audition.
Of course, because this is where we are. So you are sitting there, you are in a business of numbers. Now, we are not in a business of writing books. We are in a business of numbers. Because as we are calculating, you are number 20. That's a number. We are in the top 20. We're in a business of numbers. Right? So that's what we're chasing. So the second question is that how then do I get these numbers? Because my numbers then become my currency. Right? So that's where we are. So now when my number then become a currency, then that's what it's going to say. Then for me to be able to get that particular number, then who should I collaborate with for me to be able to get that? So some actors might complain and say, manje sekucasta abantu who are social media darlings and ibona manje sebe actor. But at the end of the day, it's about Twitter, is about there's a talkability, is about that. Right? One way or the other. Because what happens is that now suddenly you have a musician who isn't a musician but it just has numbers. You have a radio personality who isn't a radio personality but because they have numbers. You have actors who are not actors but they've got numbers. But what they've done is that they've collected enough numbers. Now they are trading their numbers anyway and blocking those who deserve to be there.
So ngicela increase ama numbers. Angazi uma nayezwa le conversation because it goes back to lento besikhuluma ukuthi uMamkhoni Chweme who's now in her 60s, right? Was not on social media. And you hear, you know, the older generation complaining and saying, "Thina asiyazi lento ukuthi isebenza kanjani, asiyazi." No, you've got grandkids who know. Mina, I don't shoot my own videos. When I'm doing a brand sponsorship, whatever, my daughter's doing it for me. I don't know how to do that stuff. She's editing and doing, I just know the content. I just know how I want it put out and I just know the message I want to relay. And then she does the whole video shooting and whatever she does. But I have access to somebody who's doing it for me, right? And even though I hated social media, I just got to a time when I was like, I've got to love this thing. And eventually I got to a time where I was like, now I'm going to make this thing work for me. So Mamkhoni, what she did is she did exactly that. She was like, I'm going to flip this. I can't keep saying Gimdala and this thing is not for me, this thing is not for. And her numbers are growing because she's putting out content. Her numbers are growing, but not only are they growing, she's now drawing sponsorships. She's now drawing brands. So I do a lot of work for Standard Bank. I know she now does work for Standard Bank because she then called me to say, "Lento mntanami, kuthiwa ngifake ilogo angazi kuphi kuphi. Yenziwa kanjani lento yabona?" So ngithi usedrawe iaudience because kunabantu abangenayo ku social media. There's a huge audience on social media that's not active. And brands understand that. Ukuthi gogo bethu uma wami is on social media. Kodwa akaza posting isithombe sodwa. Uhlala lapha the whole my mother 70. Hlala lapha the whole day loke bheke azangitshela ukuthi hawu khona into obuyibhalile lana wasukhuluma amazwi wa deep kangaka uqondise kuba yabo uhlala ku social media yabona hlale analyze abheke izithombe zabantu abhekeni but iaudience yakhe ibona oMamkhoni even though bengapost kodwa bakhona ku social media and there is a market for them. So I'm trying to say we've got to change our mindsets. We've got to shift. There has to be a paradigm shift in this mindset of thinking that social media is a curse.
Yes. I want to challenge on the issue of numbers. Now, I totally agree with you. And I'll give you an example. When we were doing Mandela Long Walk to Freedom, people were complaining. What Tony can do and play Mandela. And yes, I thought, I want to play Mandela. I want to be Mandela. The American guys, Harvey Weinstein, all they said was, okay, Tony is known in South Africa. Yeah, that's fine. He's the pillars of South Africa. Is Tony known in London, in the UK? No. Is Tony known in the US? Maybe 3-4 people in New York, but the rest no.
And they're all from South Africa.
Yes. Now, Idris Elba, you put Tony there, you put Idris Elba, you say Idris Elba. Idris Elba known in South Africa? Yes. Because everybody was going crazy here before we even went anywhere, right? Is he known in the rest of Africa, in Nigeria, in Ghana, in West Africa, North Africa? Yes. Is he known in the UK? Yes. Is he known in whatever? So who has a stronger pull between Tony? Yes, Tony will do the accent well. Yes, Tony knows the culture. He knows the political. He knows he was there even when Mandela was released. He will understand the nuances of the political standing of the time. And for him to portray this part, he will be the right person to portray it. But he will not be the right person to bring in the numbers.
The numbers. Yes.
So do you see where the difference is? So now, Tony had to take number 2. Okay, I'll be the second lead. So that's where it goes to, right? But then when it comes home, it's a little bit of a different issue. because we don't have the star system, right? Like in the States. In the States, you have your A-listers, you have your B-listers, and the C-listers. And there's a money that goes with all those levels, right? So at home here, they negotiate with you. You can be whoever, unless you become stubborn in what you say you are worth. You can telling them your value, right? But they can take anyone. So if Tony says no, like, okay, sharp, it's fine. We don't need. But there are other broadcasters who work on, and internationally, who work on the star value. We want A-listers for this show, and they know that, okay, this is the kind of money that we're going to spend with these guys. So here at home, it's haphazard. You say no, they get another one. That one, they don't care whether you're A, B, C, or W. We are lunch, because we are not standardized as an industry. So what I was trying to say is, because of that in South Africa, we then compromise talent for the numbers. So how then, my question will then be, in terms of challenging what you're saying, how then do we balance us making sure that we become authentic and we give the best talent, the cream of our talent, we put it here, whether it's in theater, whether it's on films, or whether it's on television?
And I think that's the point, though, Butoni. So I agree with both you and Zakes, in that the two have got to merge. The two have got to merge, because and trust me, I'm not going to watch it because kuno Slay Queen Mang Mang or nama numbers 5 million. And I'm an artist, and I want to watch what's quality. I want to watch content that feeds my soul.
I think it draws back now to the reality, because it's not about what we want as artists and people are sitting here. Is what's the reality? The reality is that if I've decided to invest some money as an executive producer of a show, Ayanda, as much as I love you, and I think that you're brilliant, but if I'm not going to get my money back, I'm not going to invest there. That's one thing. So the second thing is that maybe this is which is something that I was trying to avoid. Maybe this is then when the government plays a role, because government money is our money. Yeah. So maybe government needs to take care of real talent. When a government has invested.
No, I can see Tony already collapsing.
Which is
so
one thing.
Tony's already like on the floor,
which is
like
one
dead.
Which is one thing I was trying to avoid in relying on government. But when we are straight corporate, it demands us numbers. But if then there's a government money there, then it's better, because then it's issue of collaboration. So the private investor and the government collaborating to give people what they want, right? Wow. So I think that's one thing. And then the second thing also, Tony, which is one thing that you've also mentioned, we also need to understand where we are. The music industry in the US, and most books which are there are the music in the US. I remember this one time, people would challenge me with the stuff. Such a US. In US, you have a record company which is separated than a manager, which is separate than a UPR. So you have a team which is different. And artists here, when you sign them, you manage them like, no, young Rob, you're exploiting me. You should just be, a record company. I should get my own manager. Like, no, in the US, they can do that, because as a record company, I'm making enough money. Ama cities all over the world that I'm stress and issue. I'm making enough already. So find your manager. And your manager is making enough money, they don't want to be your PR. And your PR is making enough money, they don't want to be. So in the States, the business is different. Here it's not different. So so it's also about that research, of researching and understanding where you are. Power of collaboration is important. As I close, because when you research and when you understand where you are, making an example, at the time, Mina is at the time where I looked at myself, I feel like I've reached the ceiling as a performer in South Africa. There are still places that I cannot go now, but I'm perform a clapping, but I still want to be present at clapping. So I need to DJ a clapping. You not see me perform a clapping, but I'm gonna DJ, right? But then it gets to a point of saying, then what then do I do? What can I collaborate? Now, what can I do in terms of like making money in collaborating? Because collaboration does not only start and end with individuals, it also speaks to industries. So I spoke to a production company, which is, they are a production company, collaborated with them, and we went to Nelson Mandela capture site because I wanted to collaborate with now a tourism. I want to collaborate with tourism department. So now you put something together because tourism wants to whatever, you know, so all of those things. So when we talk collaboration, and we don't close our eyes and think individuals. You know, we also have to think industries. So music can collaborate with science.
Yeah.
They can collaborate with tourism. It can also collaborate with agriculture.
Bengisazosho ukuthi sithandekile sesidinga ibhena yaka science and technology bonke siyabadinga bonke lana kahle kahle.
So basically, that's what I wanted to say, and obviously this conversation will not finish. It goes
It's
to Utah.
deep.
Ubut, guys, at the end of the day, it is about research.
Yeah.
I've nailed it there.
Yeah, I think also beyond a collaboration, as artists, Tina, ourselves, kumele nathi futhi si collaborate sodwa.
Yeah.
I say that because we talk about this thing while sisasele ndozana ukuthi the problem with us ukuthi most of the time we like to come individually nga one. Kanti if ukuthi as we are, we collaborate, Tina. One is a writer, one is a musician, one is a dancer, one is a one, and then because I cannot write a script and choreograph and do scores of music and all that. But Tina, as ourselves also, collaboration as us, it's very important.
Yeah.
It is very important in a way, Yoguti. If see group and then ngesiZulu bathi initwane sasikahle imbumba iyasebenza. So that means if we lo munye athi okay, I'm gonna do scores of music, like as we are here, Zakes is doing music, you are writing, I act, you sell the production, you PR. You understand what I'm saying? In collaboration, as a collective, before we even go outside. This is what I wanted to say.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
So we're at the end of this conversation. Sthat, did you have your last word about Amadumbako? No? So, no. Okay, so we're at the end of this conversation. We want to open it up to the floor if there are any questions. Like I said, the mic is there. It's just going to be 15 minutes of Q&A. If anybody has a question, please use that mic. Stand a little bit far from it. Ungaibambi. Usondeze nje umlomo, but ungayibambi to avoid ukuthi siloku sanitizer kakhulu. Khona mhlawumbe nombuzo? Ukhona ubhuti lapha ngemuva uphakamisa isandla ungeza kwi mic bhuti. You can just stand up if you have a question and come to the mic. You don't even have to raise your hand.
Sanmonani? I just have one question to all of you. So I was looking right now, we're live on the Playhouse company Lokuzan. And you guys are some of the biggest names in the industry, but my views are correlating. Last time we had like 8 views and manjing singing a cheka. I don't know if I'm wrong. So my question is on the algorithms, social media. You guys say we can use social media, and no matter how talented you are, sometimes my algorithms are avoid me, they aren't in your favor. How can we sort of overcome that? Thank you.
How can we sort of overcome that? A question ukuthi si powerful sonke lana amagama abizayo lawa lana kodwa ama views awa collaborate ngoba abantu abayibuka kodwa ke ile collaboration ngoba I think khona abantu baka PR naka marketing la basike basifeyila khona because besidinga iposter for the conversation to post, but awakwazi ukuthi ama views abe khona makuthi abantu abazi ukuthi ngizobe ngikhuluma entweni ukuthi mina ngipostanga nje for instance bengizama bengifuna kodwa ngikwazanga ukuposta usithaka postanga Zakes upostile
No, I didn't.
akekho postile so sengibuyela kulento lo oyichazayo because ngoba nangifuna ukuphinde siloku ngizothini sikhuluma kakhulu because your question is based on what is happening here right now, isn't it? Social media in general ukuthi Mhlawumbe then ngiphinda ngoba kusho ukuthi angikuzwanga ke kahle.
I think maybe mhlambe it just goes to the practicality of it, exactly what you've answered it kahle ukuthi ukube mhlambe we had posted in time based on just ama numbers.
Yes.
Ala, mhlambe it would have been like more
Ikhekhe guys
Huge.
alibhakwa ngeqanda kuphela.
Yeah.
Ukuthi kuphume ikhekhe, kudingakala uflour, kudingakala yeast, kudingakala amaqanda, kudingakala ushukela, kudingakala into eziningi ukuthi kuphume ikhekhe eliphelele. I think ileyo concept sifane sizame we
I think I
understand.
have one answer for that.
Okay.
The answer yakhona yokuthi this is part of the research and a part of being interested in what you're doing. I care less about the numbers. All I care about the people, a person who's here. And if we can change one person here, we would have done what we needed to do. Because at the end of the day, sometimes when information is too much, you might convince someone who never wanted to be a musician, then they become because everything is just here. Then they can feel they can try something, you know. So it's good and bad sometimes, information that it's all over and you don't need it. So that's why when it's a bit far from you, when you have to make that effort of finding out, at least it takes something from you. Because when it's here, I can do this thing, it's just here, you know, and you will have a lot of people because it's there. So I'm saying, Guti, but another thing is that this thing is going to live online forever.
Yeah.
It's forever, it's there forever. And what I want to challenge each and every one of you here, who's here, like you've said, we are here, big names. The day now you happen to be us, now you also take your time and give people this information. Take your time and do that. Pass it forward, because that's what we're doing, we're passing it forward.
Thank you for that. They've got a question. Mtejo ngasukuma bhuti wami uye mawuthi nombuzo uye for purposes of time. Wait, who's the other one? Oh, right here. Okay.
Sanmoran, Ninjani. My question is that I heard that Mr. Zakes saying the contract might stipulate that it's ending. What if I find myself that lacking the information? I am an artist. I've already signed the contract that is not stipulating that it's ending or what? What can I do to make sure that I don't find myself being trapped forever with the company that is happened to sign me? We've seen many artists getting into an industry. You'll find the person like sekuphelile ngayo, just because uzothola ukuthi inkampani imsayinise contract angayi understand, and there's a lot of things as sayinile whom ubengayi understand. Ngithola kanjani ekuthenini from ukushayeka lapho ngithi bese ngibona ngikwazi pick up from certain things.
So Zakes, my question then, maybe not even Zakes, all of you. My question then goes back to ingane semakhaya enetalente engezikwazi ukuthi ifunde le contract ngoba phela abhalwa ngesingisi esiphambili. Engeke izikwazi ukuthi ifunde le contract understand ukuthi kwenzakalani lana kodwa inetalent. Iyazi kanjani ukuthi ifaka entweni enjani? And maybe this is a challenge to the industry to say those platforms should be available in the industry for artists. I don't know who's going to answer. Ngibona abantu naba bemkhomba ngemic.
No, okay. Isikhathi esiningi bhuti wami abantu abanikwa ama-contractor abahambe beyo kuma-lawyers wabo kodwa ngenxa i-desperation vele umuntu ngicela ukuyisayina manje because ucabanga ukuthi meyahambe i-opportunities gonna go away. But ngithi mina even today uma ukuthi ufuna ukuyisayina vele ungasacheckanga ngoba ufuna ukumhlupha lowo muntu, at least is the one thing that you need to make sure ukuthi at least enza sure ukuthi the contract iyaphela. Because whatever that you sign better kanjani, at least there's a day that is coming la iyophela khona. You mean at least just try and make sure ukuthi une clause. Musa ukufunda ama product, just go to breach or ending of contract. Just concentrate there.
Yeah.
If you don't want to change anything else.
Yeah.
Say okay, whatever percentage it's fine. Just you go to breach and say how then to make sure with this contract ends. It's the best thing you can do. When you are desperate, because I'm talking to people who are desperate here, because you don't want to change anything, but you're just, all you want to do with, just go to preach if you don't want to change anything, at least just make sure it ends.
And maybe it's okay to surrender and saying, yes, Nigela, this is my school fees.
Listen, I always say that, as an artist, just look at you, look where you are. I've signed bad contracts before. My first licensing contract, which I signed El Vovo to, you know, one of the biggest album. I don't think that contract I can sign it now. I signed it then. I was desperate. EMI or license El Vovo. Here's the contract. I knew with this contract is not something that I'm gonna want after 3 years, but at least I knew with that contract, me and EMI was only 3 years. And after 3 years, then I'm gonna negotiate it. So I signed it anyways, just to enter. That's what I did. So some people, you might not wanna sign. But it's up to you, so it's individual. I don't advise you to say sign something that you don't want to sign, or sign something that you don't want to sign. All I'm just advising would just look at your situation. Mina ngangiphuma kwamasha ngifuna ukushintsha impilo yami, and into mina ukushintsha impilo yami nala ngifuna yakhona was that contract. So ngayisayina ngithi desperation ngawusacrifice lo 3 years of my life. But right now, at least I own that master. I can go and renegotiate it. It's out. It's there. I own it. It's mine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At least now I know what it has money.
Thabo?
Yeah, let me just relate a story just now.
You know?
There was a production, Ebesienza, I think 2 years ago. It was called Uselwa. Besishutela a show. Got the contract, fundi contract, everything was fine. I signed the contract. And savumelana ngemali uthi this is imali engizoyithola. Phakathi nendawo ye production, the money was gone. The money was gone. In that account, kwakusele u13 rand 45 cents.
What's the number?
Out of 8 million rand. Kuleyo mali, I was only ngakhokelwa u20,000. Just because the contract yami ngayifundisisa. I fought and fought and fought and fought until they gave me my money. But njoba kade ubuza ukuthi ingane yasemakhaya, ingane yasemakhaya izothi ayi ngizothini ngoba imali iphelile. It makes sense?
Yeah.
Ngizothini ngoba bathi imali iphelile. But because I signed the contract, ngafuna imali yami. Mhlambe nayibona kuma news kuthiwa sivalele ama producer hotel or something. Maybe you heard about that.
You were doing that.
I was
It's
a lead.
illegal, I think.
No, we didn't do that. No, we didn't do that.
What she just said.
But what I'm saying is,
Bakuthiwa ufuna ukushisa iset.
what was funa ukushitha isethi and there were abantu ababelapha abantu big names ababekuleyo production. But some of them abayitholanga imali yabo. Crew, most of the crew abayitholanga imali yabo. So what I'm saying is, it works both ways. Sometimes you end up knowing the contract, but you rope away as a contract.
But
Because
a contract is a legal document.
It's a
so
legal
that's
document.
why you got paid. Ngoba your understanding was, this is a legal document.
Yeah.
So pay me.
Ukuthi production ayiphelanga mina ngatshela ukuthi I'm going to get my money.
Yeah.
And we fought and we get our money, but abanye abayitholanga. Ihotela la wabhupha because babelikweleta 1 million rand.
But I think, you know, Thabo, mina ngihleli la Ayanda. Hayi kabi. Uyabona ukukhuluma ngebudget. Lo khuluma ngayo. There was no way you guys were going to shoot that thing and finish it.
I know.
There was absolutely no way. So ibuyela back to even nalabo fanele ngabe baya understand because of the desperation that we are talking about. Bagcine bashayeka self bese beshaya wanina.
And sasidla ama prawns. Wabayibona
Guys, I'm gonna run.
that was a crafty le. I'm not talking about craft. Ama prawns. Amanya grilliwa, amanya deep fried. Prawns.
on never on a single day on Isiba, let alone lamb chops. But anyway, I've got 3 questions at the back. We're going to take them very quickly and then we're going to close the session.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sanbonani. My question is to Zakes. I think you keep mentioning the idea of numbers. And I'm assuming you're talking about business, so the business side of creativity. Uguti, if you're wanting to make a livelihood from your creativity, you need those numbers. But mukuluma ngomuntu who has this talent, like Tony was saying, and they want to cultivate that talent, but they maybe not necessarily interested. Uguti, I want to build numbers, ngoba ngifuna ukwenza business ngale creativity yami. How can you speak to that person outside of numbers?
Yeah, what a good question, Siswam. What a very good question. With regards to a creative industry, Mina, I chose to look at it from a commercial point of view. For me, it's really on a commercial point of view, and I think I excel on that one. And I would like to give advice to people who want to do the commercial part of it, because I think that's where I know. The ones who just want to contribute, because I might advise them wrong, because that's not my core, of what I know. But commercialization of the industry, it's one thing that I always talk about, because I think the livelihood right now in this current dispensation, and also with being in a capitalist world, you one way or the other, you need commerce for you to survive. So I would say those who want to contribute in the industry, mhlawumbe uButhoni might just abangafuni ukwenza imali, abafuna icontributela. Mhlawumbe uButhoni angabaza ngoba uyabazi. So mhlawumbe uButhoni angabaza ngoba uyabazi. Mina but
Wena akekho umuntu owenza ibusiness or akekho umuntu owenza into nje just because kufanele kuphilise ngokwazi kwakho.
Mina ngokwazi kwami ngicela mina ukuthi into oyenzayo iphilise. Nimathiwa nje uyahamba mawalk phila ngokwalk, mawugijima phila ngokugijima, mawungokuhlala phila ngokuhlala. Mathi uyalala, mawungenza imali ngokuthi uyalala, yenza imali ngokuthi uyalala. Mawungenza imali ngokuthi yini oyenzayo, yenza imali.
Siswami, ngiyamuzwa uZakes, ngiyayizwa question yakho, but I think mhlambe there's an aspect of maybe an unrealistic view that we might take, because we understand ukuthi musuphakathi laphayana ngeke they slave drive you. There's no way uzosebenzela mahala ngoba uthi wena drive by passion ma usulapha. Ngeke nje uzuthi mina ngidla drive by passion. Kodwa into engizocela yona ukuthi I give this advice to everyone. Ukuthi there are so many of us who are standing with queue eyodwa. Sifuna ukuthola ukuthi singangena kanjani laphaya. Abantu abaningi bahlula ukuqala at the bottom. Abantu abaningi bafuna ukuqala phezulu. Awukuhambe nje ku-production company uthi angifuna ukuhola, angizelanga ukuzohola, ngicela ukuthi ngizoseva itiye lama artist kuseni phela, ngiseve icrew mangabe kunja, ngicela nje ukuzoseva itiye. I always say ukuthi you beat everyone, the 5,000 who are in the audition line. You have beaten because usungaphakathi wena ubuthe ufuna uku-act ukwi-audition line unumber 4084. Kodwa ngokuthi uhambe uyocela ukuseva itiye usungaphakathi. And what happens is you again, this is speaking to innovation. Be innovative about how you get into the industry. Be innovative about how you get into the industry. You start building relationships. This industry is about relationships. You start building relationships inside. Ngoba wena uthe ngicela ukuthi nje mina ekseni ngiphinde script. Yabo? Ngisinika ama-artist. Uyabona ukuthi nje ubuprint script kuyakhulunywa la uku-story room. Kuyakhulunywa yabo lokhu sevitiye wenzani? Ngizoshanela makufanele ngishanele, it's fine. Kodwa nje bakhuluma usuyazi ukuthi kuthiwa kune character entsha ngoba usune relationship noButhabo who's casting phakathi kuzalo. Usune relationship ngoba wena usandile usungaphakathi. Uzofika uthi Buthabo ngizwile lapho story room khulunywa ukuthi kune character ngathi yes bengicela ukuthi ngizame. There's no way azonqabela ngakhona. There is no way. I'm saying be innovative about how you get into the industry. Be innovative kuba innovative usuphakathi. Ukuthi ngigeda kanjani? Be innovative. 2 more questions bese siyaqeda.
Sanibona. Kamala Mngumanda Ndimande. I've actually dabbled in the industry. Studied drama and music, and then when I fell pregnant, and then geze ekhaya kwasebenza ekhaya ngithe Goli bengisebenza ngibuye ngasebenza 6 months ngilambe ngafika ekhaya kwasebenzeka kwamjojo manje kodwa khona lento engaphakathi kimi ukuthi angeke ngikwazi to study 3 years go on all these workshops because I even was in a back and forth to Cape Town and I actually got a musical theater gig from that too. So I find these very ziyavula ingqondo ziyavula ukuthi ukwazi ukuconnecta nabantu abanjengani that can help. So now what I'm asking is how do you get out of that rut ukuthi lento yasisithandi deyisho ukuthi udayisa amadumbe and when I've been thriving there ngiyenza imali ngiyakwazi ukuyiphilisa but at the same time khona lento ethi I'm an artist first and I need for me ukuthi I get depressed or ingqondo yami ngathi ayihambi kahle when I'm not within the space engenzeka ukuthi ngikwazi ukwenza umntana wami ngikwazi ukuthi nasekhaya ngicontribute because mangakwazi ucontribute most you become insolvent like awukhona lento engahlonipheki kahle mangakwazi ucontribute ngini like honestly speaking though so how do you get out of that rut of ukuphanda to following your dreams and where are these hubs because manje sengumuntu who's never even touched who's never been on stage who's never even been in a TV thing because sengakuzama konke sengakwenza konke but manje sengikule lento ukuthi ngistakile ke manje ukuthi how do I revisit or how do I reinvest myself into what I initially started loving
I mean, I love the fact that we are it pays off. Because what you're saying is you made, you just said, okay, in the meantime, just to survive. One, I can't now practically, let me go back home. What was her in the meantime? And in the meantime, like she says, impilisi. But now, and now the passion pushes in, and now she wants to get back. So taking everything you've heard here, which is saying now, what are the intersections within you as a creative? You're talking musical theater, you've studied, you've done other things after studying as well, you've been exposed. So now, usala, if Google to Safuna, and like Ayanda just said, we have Uzalo, we have Joburg, Debenjen, we have other productions that are happening here. Nazi Playhouse, where you are, that means your mind is constantly on the ground and your ears on the ground in terms of what's happening within the industry. Which means you are really passionate and you're on the right track in terms of doing the research. You're doing the work. So you're here, right? Which means, Ngambela, you must take that now based on all this conversation and say, okay, what is my real, what is my practicality right now? Ngoba asiyazi your practicality. We can just say, hambi yobhala, and maybe you don't even have a laptop, right? But what is your real? And that is known to you. But based on usubonile in terms of exposure to other layers of the industry, there must be something that you know you can do in the meantime as well. But that's still part of your passion.
I think also networker is very important.
Yeah.
I say that, there are production companies, stage-wise or even film-wise or TV-wise, are around. It's not a crime to go there and say, I just want to see what you're doing. Change numbers with people, exchange numbers. Like Playhouse, kunama production, yabona lama poster, I rehearse or cherry power and everything. Can I just sit and watch your rehearsal for 30 minutes? Then after that, ask 2-3 questions. Go, puma lapoguna something oikraspile. You understand? Because the problem is, we before, we have a fear of networking for ourselves. But it is very important. Go to Debenjen, sit there. We around Skamashu, Selamont, Scoopy. Go there and talk to someone. Director, go to director. How do you do this thing? If director or director pure, uzokunika number or uma kukuthi is the laba abanye.
Yeah.
But
Lababanye.
but there is something you're gonna grasp out of that. That's what I
Yeah.
wanted to say.
Okay, one last uphendulekile. Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. One last question.
And I was listening to all the legal stuff that was being discussed. I had come here to see refugees and all the tickets were sold. So if someone has a ticket that they want to give me, can they please give me or sell it to me? And in exchange, I will, because it's an industry and I think that a lot of artists are sitting here, I will share a pearl of wisdom or two in exchange for that ticket. In 15 years of practicing law, I think what I've seen most, which is really sad, is that when people, first of all, people save a penny to spend a pound. They save 10 cents to spend 10 rand. They do not want to go out and get legal advice before they enter into a contract. So the first thing they'll look at is they'll say, I need to save this money, and yet that contract can make sure that you eat way beyond that TV show has gone onto screen. It can make sure that your estate eats way beyond when you have passed on. And so the importance of taking that little bit of money and saying to an attorney, read through my contract, explain it to me. Is it worth entering? Where should I negotiate? Can really buy you and your generations forth some form of income. That's the first pearl of wisdom that I'd like to think. And if I have an interest in the arts, only from one who wants to appreciate and view and laugh and clap hands and say, wow, this is beautiful. And maybe one day when I'm a billionaire, I will donate to the arts. But right now, it's to appreciate. If I was speaking to an artist who is sitting at home and saying, I have no money, how do I get someone to read my contract? Then I'll say to you that every university has a legal clinic that you can go to and have a student look at the contract who is supervised by an expert in the field. So know your resources. Then I'll say to you, there's Legal Aid South Africa. They have attorneys. If you do not have an income, you actually qualify to go there and say, can I have somebody just look at this contract? And then if you really are desperate, look at the breach provision. Like you said, when can I get out? So that's connected to the first pearl of wisdom. The second pearl of wisdom that I'd like to share is very often when you are hungry, you tend to under-negotiate or undersell yourself because all you want is that bread in your pocket. And South African artists will sit back and they'll say, as long as I can get a job, that's okay, that's enough, you know? And if it's a South African black artist, because it cuts even across, away from arts, it cuts into whatever industry we work in. We tend to say, as long as I can get something. Whereas in others, in other cultures, other colors, other countries, people set what they are worth. They say, this is my value. Yeah. And if you pass me, you must know, this is what I'm offering you, this is my value, take it or leave it. So yes, you become exclusive, but you're selling yourself for what you are worth. So you are not angry when that show is viewing there and you're sitting there and you cannot even buy yourself a scarf. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for that legal advice. Sorry.
Please, can I squeeze in? It's just a comment. If angisho angizoba right. With being innovative, with looking for other means or your other gifts that you have within the sector. I'm an actor. I never knew I could administrate. And right now there's a gap in the industry for administrators. Yeah. for people who are going to be production assistants, production managers. And if you have a little bit of financial knowledge, you can be a line producer. There's so many things that we can do, even off the set, where we're working with the paperwork, because at the end of the day, paperwork, you're a narrative of how this entire work is going to happen. So don't undermine being an administrator in the arts. It's very fulfilling. It's just as passion work. Because getting all these people and all these names to be in a certain space together, that's your applaud. That's your passion. And you're still telling stories. You're just doing it from behind a desk.
Thank you so much, Annalisa, for that, because I actually wanted to add, we're busy producing our very first, so I've diversified now and become an executive producer. I'm no longer an actor. Well, I'm still an actor, but I want to create my own work so that ngizoyifaka story nami. But what I'm saying is, in this process of the behind the scenes, which I was not exposed to, the lack of exceptional people, like line producers, series producers, the administrative work there's such a huge gap. Right now I'm sitting without a series producer because we can't find one. Oh, really? Okay, we have just found one. But but I'm trying to say there is a gap in the areas which you are talking about. So there's an opportunity there as well. So we're closing. Guys, thank you so much, Ngiyabonga, for your time. Thank you, Star, Zakes, Tony, husband and wife. Zabuya, Thabo. Thank you so very much for your time and just being able to impart this knowledge on everybody. And thank you to the Playhouse Durban. Thank you everybody that's just been behind the scenes, the camera guys. We didn't get to officially meet the crew, but I just want to thank everybody who's been a part of this. But I also just want to thank you as the audience who have come out here, because this wouldn't have made sense if you guys weren't here, right? So thank you for taking the time to come out here and listen to this. And thank you to everybody who's also watching at home. And I have to mention Creative Cool, which is the Stars company. So this is brought to you in partnership with. So thank you so very much. And as my parting shot, guys, culture evolves, we have to adapt. Whether siyathanda noma sithandi. Culture evolves, we have to adapt. Sithanda singathandi. Number 2, people invest in interested people. Lento ebisho uButhabo ubuthamba obuza. Mina, we're not mind readers. We can't read minds. Buza, khuluma, bangiscefe. Do you know ukuthi the most successful people are ever scefe? Ubangiscefe uze ubangiscefe. Or fake it till you make it. Or bange iscefe. Bangiscefe if this is really what's driving you. Bangiscefe. Because there's no way I'm going to ignore you. There is no way I'm going to ignore you. But also, you're not a tree. We are not trees. We are not stuck. Only trees are stuck. And only those who have been on the ground for years and years, and only trees are stuck. We are not stuck. We are not trees. And lastly, we are not as powerless as we think we are. We really are not as powerless as we think we are. I hope that you've taken into account, I mean, I wish the session was 5 hours long because I think the kind of information that there's so much that we haven't been able to even touch on. I wish it was longer, but I hope we'll have more of these sessions, Sis Annalise. I hope we'll have more of these sessions because there really is a lot more that we need to talk about. We need to delve into that legal stuff, because actually, right, we need to delve into that legal stuff because actually, I'm a contractor to our production company, a broadcaster. So we are bound by legalities that are up there, that need to be challenged in parliament, not even here. So it's about understanding all those dynamics. But once again, thank you so much. Makwande ukwanda kwaliwa umthakathi, makwande kukhanye kube kuhle ngaso sonke isikhathi.
Thank you.